In this literary analysis video, I'll be discussing point of view. Now, perspective is a word you'll probably hear in literature classes. A text provides perspective on a particular thing. We also try to think about the author's perspective. We might consider the perspective of audiences back then and then compare them to the perspective of audiences today. Now, one way perspective can be shown is through point of view or narration. Point of view is essentially what the character or the narrator telling the story can see. In other words, it's the perspective of the person telling the story. Now, there are four main types of narration. There's first person, second person, third person limited, and third person omniscient. With first person point of view, we are seeing the story through the eyes of a character. It involves use of personal pronouns, first person pronouns such as I or we or my. Strengths of first person point of view are that it allows the writer to use bias and perspective to develop the story and particular themes and messages of the text. It also allows the writer to withhold information or not tell readers things in order to create a dramatic effect. And finally, it creates a sense of intimacy between the reader and the character. On the other hand, your experience of the story is limited to just one person's perspective, their thoughts, and what they see. Now let's look at an example. This is Charles Dickens' Great Expectation, and we follow the story through the eyes of Pip, or Pirrip. Now the benefit of using a first-person point of view in this context is that there is a level of intimacy built between the reader and characters. I can see here, I called myself Pip and came to be called Pip. He's telling us his nickname. It feels a lot more personal and intimate. He also tells us about his first fancies regarding what they were like and unreasonably derived from their tombstones, his first ideas. This, as I say, develops a sense of intimacy. Another example is The Great Gatsby. Now, in The Great Gatsby, you might think, based on the name, that the story is told through the eyes or follows Great Gatsby, but it doesn't. It's actually a guy called Nick who's the narrator, and he tells us the story. Now, the problem with this is that Nick is kind of biased towards Gatsby. He says if personality is an unbroken series of successful gestures, there was something gorgeous about him. And at the end, he says, Gatsby turned out all right in the end. Nick kind of loves Gatsby, and because of this, his biased narration develops themes and messages in the story and allows for further investigation and understanding of the text. Second person narration is the story being told addressed to you directly. The pronouns used are you. Strength for this, it involves you, the reader, in the story, and it's an uncommon reading experience. Problems are that it is really difficult to do. It's not done often, and it might alienate readers because it is so different. Now let's look at Jay McInerney's Bright Lights, Big City. Here you can see you feel a sense of nostalgia as you walk down narrow halls past all the closed doors. You remember how you felt when you passed this way for your first interview. You're the character, and you're being addressed like this by the narrator. It makes you involved in the story, and so you have a connection with it. Another example, How to Get Filthy Rich in Rising Asia. We begin the story, the whites of your eyes are yellow, and there's spiking bilirubin levels in your blood. You're going to die. By doing this, you are connected and engaged with the text, and you also empathize with people going through problems such as this. Third person limited is a popular way of narration. It's a popular point of view. The story is told by a narrator, but it follows one character's point of view. They focus on one character. Now, its strengths are that it offers a similar level of intimacy as first person point of view. The author can share more with the reader than the character's thoughts and experience. They can look around, and the narrator acts as an avatar for the reader, experiencing the story as the character does. But it is told by a narrator and not the character. Weaknesses, the events are limited to a singular character directly or indirectly through their experiences. Now, Popular example, Harry Potter. We follow Harry. We know what's going on in Harry's mind. We are told about Harry's thoughts and feelings, and we go through the story as if we're looking over Harry's shoulder. We can see what other characters are doing around Harry, but we don't know what they're thinking. Instead, I only know that Hagrid watches Harry sadly. I don't know what he's thinking. Another example is from George Orwell's 1984, as we follow Winston. Here, there is a level of intimacy built between the reader and Winston, as we feel that we're looking over his shoulder as Winston is looking at a paperweight that he finds just beautiful and possesses him. The final type of point of view is third person omniscient. Now, you might recognize the omniscient as being something that connotes God almost. This is often called a God's eye view. The narrator can see, experience, feel everything. They know what's going on in everyone's minds. Strengths of this, it creates a sense of objectivity and authority. The author can relate any information that he or she wants. The author can develop multiple storylines, and the narrator can have a distinct voice. They're almost a separate character. Weaknesses, it can be less intimate than other forms of narration, and jumping between perspectives of characters can be tiring or confusing to readers. Now, a really popular example is Lord of the Flies by William Golding. And we can see in this excerpt, first we focus on Ralph, the boy with the fair hair, and we see what he's doing. Later, we look at Piggy's friends, and we focus on him. Now, this goes on through the novel. Characters even split up, and we break between different characters' perspectives. Now, when you're looking at point of view, there are some things to ask yourself. First of all, who is telling the story? What perspective is it being told from? How would the text be different if the author used a different type of narration? Would its themes change in any way? Would it be more objective or less objective, and is that important? Is there a gap between what the reader knows and what the character knows? Perhaps there's bias. Perhaps they're deliberately choosing not to tell you information. What might that be and why? And is the narrator reliable? And what effect does the reliability or lack of reliability of the narrator achieve? Does it develop a theme? Remember, when considering point of view, there are 4 types: first, second, third limited, and third omniscient. Which one is it? And ask yourselves the questions.